Remember the days when cars were more than just transportation? They were rolling time capsules, filled with quirky features that now seem like relics of a bygone era. From the cozy comfort of bench seats to the novelty of in-car record players, there was a time when cars were packed with features that were as much about fun as they were about function. Let's take a nostalgic journey back to the good old days and explore some of the most iconic yet forgotten car features that once graced our roads. Bench seats. Bench seats were a common feature in cars from the 1930s to the 1990s, designed to stretch across the entire front row and accommodate 3 passengers side by side. This layout maximized seating capacity and offered enhanced comfort for families and groups during travel. However, as automotive safety standards evolved, the limitations of bench seats became increasingly apparent. They provided less support and protection in collisions compared to bucket seats, and they typically lacked individual seat belts and headrests for each passenger. By the 1980s, automakers began to favor bucket seats, which offered improved safety and comfort, leading to the gradual phase-out of bench seats in passenger cars. Today, bench seats are mostly a nostalgic memory of older automotive eras. Vent windows, also known as wing windows, were small triangular windows positioned at the front corners of car doors. Introduced in the 1930s, they provided a way to let fresh air flow into vehicles before air conditioning became widespread. These windows gained popularity in the 1950s and 60s, becoming a distinctive feature of many classic cars. Despite their charm, vent windows had notable drawbacks, including issues with leaking during rain and vulnerability to theft. As automotive design evolved and air conditioning became standard in vehicles, automakers began phasing out vent windows in favor of more streamlined designs that enhanced aerodynamics and fuel efficiency. By the late 1980s, vent windows were no longer a common feature in new cars, but they remain a nostalgic element of automotive history for many enthusiasts. Ashtrays. Once a staple in vehicles, ashtrays provided a convenient spot for smokers to dispose of ashes and cigarette butts. Introduced in the early 20th century, they became standard by the 1950s, reflecting the widespread acceptance of smoking at the time. However, growing awareness of health risks associated with smoking led to a decline in their popularity. Additionally, ashtrays pose safety hazards, such as potential fire risks, if not properly maintained. By the 1990s, car manufacturers began phasing out ashtrays, replacing them with more practical features like cup holders and storage compartments. Today, modern vehicles largely lack ashtrays, opting for cleaner and more eco-friendly interiors. Car record players. Introduced in the late 1950s, in-car record players promised a novel way for drivers and passengers to enjoy their favorite vinyl records while on the road. However, this innovative feature quickly proved impractical. The vibrations and bumps from driving caused the needle to skip, leading to damage to both the records and the players. Additionally, safety concerns arose, as changing records while driving was distracting and dangerous. By the 1960s, in-car record players fell out of favor, giving way to more reliable alternatives like 8-track tapes and later cassette players, marking the end of a brief but intriguing automotive experiment. Landau bars. Landau bars were decorative features added to cars in the 1930s to mimic the look of convertible carriages from the 18th century. While they initially served a functional purpose in horse-drawn carriages in automobiles, they became purely ornamental, intended to give cars an elegant old-world appearance. However, as consumers realized they served no practical purpose, their appeal diminished. By the mid-20th century, Landau bars were abandoned as unnecessary embellishments and replaced by more practical features like sunroofs and panoramic roofs. Column shifters. Introduced in the 1940s, column shifters mounted on the steering column became popular for maximizing front seat space in American cars. This design appealed to families in the 1950s, offering convenience and comfort. However, their limitations surfaced over time, including reduced precision compared to floor-mounted shifters and increased wear and tear. The 1960s saw a decline in column shifters' popularity as sports cars gained traction, with drivers preferring floor shifters for enhanced control and a sportier feel. By the 1980s, ergonomic designs and center consoles led to the phasing out of column shifters from mainstream vehicles. Luggage racks. Luggage racks were once a common sight on cars, particularly from the mid-20th century. Typically mounted on the roof or trunk, these racks provided extra storage for family road trips. However, they came with drawbacks, including increased wind resistance and safety risks if luggage fell off during travel. As automotive designs evolved and larger trunks became standard, the need for external racks diminished, leading to their decline by the late 20th century. During the 1960s and 1970s, luggage racks were seen as practical for additional storage, yet exposure to harsh weather caused them to rust and deteriorate quickly. By the 1980s, they were largely replaced by more durable and space-efficient alternatives like rooftop cargo boxes. Car phones. Car phones emerged as a groundbreaking innovation in 1946, introduced by Bell System for use in vehicles. These bulky, heavy devices were primarily favored by business professionals due to their high cost. By the 1980s, car phones had become a symbol of luxury, often integrated into armrests with necessary equipment stored in the trunk. They provided basic voice call services, offering the convenience of communication on the go. However, their size and reliance on vehicle power systems made them impractical for everyday use. As mobile phone technology rapidly advanced throughout the 1990s, portable cell phones became smaller, more affordable, and widely accessible. This shift led to the decline of dedicated car phones, rendering them obsolete. By the mid-1990s, handheld mobile phones replaced car phones, transforming how people communicated while driving and marking the end of an era in automotive technology. Hood ornaments. Hood ornaments were prominent decorative features on the front of cars, serving as symbols of luxury and brand identity from the 1920s to the 1960s. These metal sculptures, often elaborate in design, reflected status and style, capturing the imagination of car enthusiasts. However, they also presented safety concerns, as they could cause injury to pedestrians during accidents and were frequently targeted for theft or damage. By the 1970s, shifting consumer tastes and new safety regulations led to the decline of hood ornaments. As sleek, integrated logos became more popular, the once celebrated decorative features gradually faded from the automotive landscape, marking the end of an era in car design. Pop-up headlights emerged in the 1960s, designed to enhance the aerodynamic profile and provide a modern aesthetic for sports cars like the Mazda Miata and Corvette. Their innovative mechanism was initially celebrated for its futuristic appeal. However, issues such as mechanical failures and high maintenance costs began to surface over time. Stricter safety regulations in the late 1990s further contributed to their decline, making fixed headlights more favorable. By the early 2000s, pop-up headlights were largely phased out, although they continue to be cherished by enthusiasts of vintage vehicles. Today, while they symbolize a distinctive era in automotive design, their impracticality for contemporary safety standards and reliability has relegated them to nostalgia rather than modern functionality. The floor dimmer switch. It was introduced in the 1920s and allowed drivers to switch between high and low beam headlights by pressing a button with their foot. This design kept hands on the steering wheel, enhancing convenience. However, its location on the floor exposed it to wear and tear, especially in wet conditions, reducing its durability. By the 1970s, many manufacturers began moving the switch to the steering column, influenced by European trends. This column-mounted design proved more reliable and less prone to damage. The floor dimmer switch was gradually phased out, with the last vehicles featuring it being the 1991 Ford F-Series and E-Series vans. Vinyl roofs. Vinyl roofs gained popularity in the 1960s and 70s, designed to replicate the look of convertible tops. This trend, however, began in the 1920s, when vinyl materials like leather and canvas were used to mimic horse-drawn carriages. By the 1950s, they evolved into a symbol of style, adding a sleek, convertible-like appearance to cars, with some models, like the 1953 Kaiser Dragon, even sporting unique finishes such as a bamboo texture. During their peak in the 1970s, vinyl roofs became a fashionable alternative to convertibles. However, their tendency to trap water led to rust and damage to the car's metal body. Maintenance issues, including cracking and fading, made them less desirable by the 1980s, and they were largely replaced by more durable, low-maintenance materials. While not as common today, vinyl roofs can still be seen on specialty vehicles such as hearses and limousines. 8-track tapes, introduced in 1964 by Bill Lear of Learjet Corporation, the 8-track tape revolutionized in-car audio. This format provided around 80 minutes of continuous music play without needing to flip the tape, making it convenient for drivers. Its portability and ease of use made it incredibly popular, especially in cars during the late 1960s and 1970s. Despite its initial success, the 8-track tape had significant flaws. Tapes often jammed, and the sound quality deteriorated over time due to wear and tear. By the early 1980s, compact cassettes, which offered better sound quality and were more reliable, started to dominate the market. Soon after, compact discs became the preferred choice for music lovers. Though no longer widely used, the 8-track tape still has a niche appeal, with some artists releasing music in this format as a collectible novelty for enthusiasts. Automatic seat belts. Automatic seat belts were first introduced in the 1975 Volkswagen Golf to increase seat belt usage. By the late 1980s, they gained popularity, especially after U.S. regulation in 1977 required either airbags or automatic seat belts in new cars by 1983. These belts automatically secured the passenger's chest when the ignition was turned on, but the lap belt still needed to be manually fastened. While they did help reduce crash fatalities, they became unpopular due to their inconvenience and incompatibility with child safety seats. Additionally, many users neglected the manual lap belt, which led to serious injuries. By the mid-1990s, automatic seat belts were phased out in favor of airbags and traditional seat belts, which offered better overall protection and ease of use. Despite their flaws, vehicles equipped with automatic belts had lower crash death rates compared to those with manual belts during their use. Tail fins. Tail fins made their debut in 1948 on the Cadillac, inspired by the twin rudders of the P-38 fighter plane. This design element quickly became a symbol of futuristic and bold automotive styling, reaching its peak with the 1959 Cadillac Eldorado, which featured dramatic, jet-like stabilizers. Though visually striking, the tail fins had little practical benefit. They disrupted the car's aerodynamics, increasing drag and reducing fuel efficiency. By the early 1960s, as automotive design shifted toward more streamlined and practical shapes, tail fins began to lose their appeal. Most manufacturers had phased them out by 1962, favoring designs that prioritized aerodynamics over bold styling. Despite their decline, tail fins remain a nostalgic symbol of 1950s American car culture, and modern vehicles occasionally incorporate subtle design cues that nod to this once iconic trend. Push-button transmissions. Push-button transmissions were introduced in the mid-1950s as a novel way to shift gears, notably in Chrysler models like the Imperial and Dodge Dart. Instead of the traditional gear shift lever, cars were equipped with buttons on the dashboard, allowing drivers to select gears by simply pressing a button. This design was marketed as a futuristic convenience, promising an easier driving experience. However, push-button transmissions quickly encountered issues. Drivers unfamiliar with this new system found it confusing and were prone to pressing the wrong button by mistake. Mechanical problems, such as malfunctions in the electrical and cable systems connecting the dashboard to the transmission, also plagued the design. Despite its initial appeal, the concept was phased out by 1965 in favor of more reliable and user-friendly gear shifts. Interestingly, the push-button transmission has made a comeback in some modern vehicles, where advancements in technology have addressed the flaws of its earlier iterations, making it safer and more efficient. White wall tires. White wall tires emerged in 1914 as a symbol of luxury and style, featuring a distinct white rubber stripe on the sidewall. Initially, all tires were white due to zinc oxide, which enhanced traction. However, manufacturers began adding carbon black to the tire tread to increase durability, leaving only the sidewalls white. By the 1930s, white wall tires became a popular option for those seeking a touch of elegance, and Ford even offered them as a premium add-on for $11.25, around $246 today. These tires were especially fashionable on luxury cars, symbolizing wealth and sophistication. Despite their popularity, white wall tires were difficult to keep clean, and by the mid-1980s they fell out of favor as automotive design trends shifted towards sleek, modern aesthetics. Black tires, which were easier to maintain and match the evolving car designs, eventually became the standard, leading to the decline of white walls. Curb feelers. Curb feelers, also known as curb finders, were small, spring-loaded rods attached to a car's fenders, designed to prevent damage to wheels or hubcaps when parking. They would scrape against the curb, providing a tactile and audible alert to drivers that they were too close, helping them avoid scraping the wheels. Popular from the 1940s to the 1960s, curb feelers were especially useful when cars had wider bodies and parking required precision. However, these rods were prone to damage and breakage, which diminished their practicality over time. As vehicles evolved and became equipped with wider frames, the need for curb feelers decreased. The development of advanced parking technologies like sensors and cameras in modern cars made curb feelers obsolete. Though rarely seen today, curb feelers remain a nostalgic relic for automotive enthusiasts who fondly remember their utility and charm from a bygone era. Ttops, or T-bar roofs, were patented in 1951 by Gordon Burig. Featuring two removable panels, they allowed for an open-air driving experience without sacrificing structural integrity. First popularized by the 1968 Chevrolet Corvette, T-tops became a favorite feature in sports cars like the Camaro, Firebird, and Corvette during the 1970s and 1980s. Made from materials such as safety glass or acrylic, T-tops offered drivers a mix of convertible-like freedom and hardtop sturdiness. Despite their appeal, they developed a reputation for leaking and causing wind noise, making them less practical for everyday use. Storing the heavy, bulky panels also proved inconvenient for many drivers. As car technology advanced, particularly in convertible and sunroof designs, T-tops fell out of favor. By the early 2000s, they were rare, as consumers preferred more reliable, user-friendly options. Today, T-tops are remembered as a nostalgic feature from the golden era of American muscle cars. Ignition code security system. It was introduced in the 1970s and added an extra layer of security by requiring drivers to enter a code before removing the ignition key. This feature, pioneered by BMW and later adopted by Subaru for models like the WRX to address rising car thefts, provided enhanced protection against unauthorized access. While this system was an early innovation in vehicle security, it eventually fell out of favor due to its complexity and inconvenience for drivers. Keypad entry systems were gradually replaced by more streamlined solutions, such as modern keyless entry and alarm systems. However, the concept of coded security has been revisited, as seen in Tesla's Pin to Drive, which continues the tradition of safeguarding vehicles from theft. Corinthian Leather. Corinthian Leather, a marketing term introduced by Chrysler in 1974, referred to premium leather seat material that elevated the luxury appeal of vehicles. The term gained immense popularity through celebrity spokesperson Ricardo Montalban in ads for the Chrysler Cordoba, significantly boosting sales during its time. However, as the automotive industry evolved, advancements in synthetic materials rendered Corinthian leather obsolete. Consumers began to favor more durable, environmentally friendly options, leading to a decline in demand for traditional leather. Consequently, this iconic feature was phased out in modern vehicles, marking the end of an era. Today, while Corinthian leather remains a nostalgic term, its practical application has faded, reflecting changing consumer preferences and industry standards. Children's car seats. The concept of children's car seats emerged in the early 1970s, but was initially met with skepticism, as many viewed them as excessive. However, compelling statistics demonstrated a significant reduction in fatalities among children secured in car seats. This evidence led to the implementation of mandatory car seat laws across most of the U.S. by 1985, marking a pivotal shift in attitudes toward child safety in vehicles. Over time, the designs and regulations for car seats have continued to evolve, incorporating advanced safety features. Although some older designs have been discontinued due to safety concerns, modern car seats now prioritize secure, comfortable, and safe travel for children, reflecting a commitment to protecting young passengers on the road. 25th wheel car parking. In the 1950s, there was a car that could almost park itself, known as the park car. Invented by Brooks Walker in the 1930s and patented in the 1950s, this innovative vehicle featured a fifth wheel that allowed it to rotate in and out of parking spaces and turn in a full circle. It utilized a series of hydraulic pumps and gears to push the spare wheel out from the trunk, simplifying the parallel parking process. Despite its clever design, the park car didn't catch on and was ultimately discontinued, leaving it as a quirky footnote in automotive history. Talking cars. In the 1980s, some vehicles were equipped with basic voice warning systems, such as Nissan's alerts for issues like an open door or low fuel. These systems used pre-recorded messages to notify drivers of potential problems, offering a futuristic touch for the time. However, the technology was rudimentary, lacking the sophistication of today's voice assistants. While charming and novel, talking cars eventually fell out of favor as drivers found the repetitive warnings more of an annoyance than a help. As technology advanced, these early systems were discontinued. With modern voice assistants making a comeback, future cars may feature more refined, interactive prompts to communicate vital information while enhancing user experience. Vents under the steering wheel. From the 1950s to the 1990s, vents under the steering wheel provided essential cooling for drivers, especially on hot days. These vents were particularly appreciated in cars with vinyl seats, which could become uncomfortably warm. The simple yet effective ventilation offered relief by directing airflow to the driver's legs and feet. However, with the advent of modern self-cooling seats and more advanced climate control systems, these under-steering wheel vents have become obsolete. Today, they are a nostalgic feature of older vehicles, replaced by more efficient solutions in contemporary car designs. Rear hinge doors. Rear hinge doors, also known as coach or suicide doors, were popular from the 1900s to the 1960s, inspired by horse carriages. These doors provided easier access to rear seats, especially in luxury vehicles, adding a touch of elegance to their design. However, safety concerns arose, particularly the risk of doors opening while driving and increased aerodynamic drag. Due to these issues and evolving safety regulations, rear hinge doors fell out of favor. While rare in modern cars, they remain a nostalgic symbol of automotive luxury and craftsmanship, occasionally featured in limited edition models today. As we wrap up our video, thank you for joining us on this nostalgic journey through the forgotten car inventions of the 1900s. We hope you enjoyed exploring these fascinating innovations that once shaped the automotive landscape. If you have any cherished memories of these features or know of other forgotten inventions, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more captivating content. Until next time, keep your passion for cars alive and continue your exploration of the incredible world of automotive history.